Welcome to Access Your Leadership, where we share inspiring career stories and talk about ways you can level up your own leadership potential. I'm your host and coach, Akeem Mokhtar, and today I'm catching up on a month's worth of not podcasting. And I've missed you guys. And the reality is, the last podcast episode that I did was with my dear father. And hopefully, some of you tuned in. It was honestly one of the most exciting episodes I was able to do and most touching to actually listen back to. And I haven't listened back to many episodes in their entirety or any before having done that one with my dad. And it was such a special thing. Well, unfortunately, days after publishing that episode, my father went into the hospital for a couple weeks due to some complications with his Parkinson's. And fast forward, he is out of the hospital. He is doing well. He is gaining his strength back and home and doing just fine. But it had us scared and very much focused on that the 2 weeks that he was in. In that time, since then, I also have been to Chicago for some business meetings, which was amazing, and even had a surprise trip to Boston, which I may have to do a podcast episode on its own because it was such an amazing trip. And I have been collecting content to focus on and to reflect on and to share with all of you in this podcast as I get this back up and going. And today's episode is really about a recent event that occurred for me with another coaching friend of mine, a very good friend of mine, Rob Cressy, who came into town, and we had a full 12-hour day of creating, which we dubbed our creation vacation because Rob came down from Sarasota. I live in the South Florida area, and we decided that we were going to spend the day in the Keys. So he drove down 3 hours. I said, "Do you mind hopping in the car for a little bit longer?" And we made our way down to Key Largo. And by 10:30, 10 o'clock, 10:30 a.m., we were sitting there with our feet in the sand at a table looking out over the Gulf. And it was just a beautiful setting for what we would then create. And the reason why I'm sharing this experience in the creation vacation is one, to highlight the fact that I do these retreats with clients and they are of such value to have that time together, one-on-one, in person, sort of sharing that energy, nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, just being with each other for an extended period of time. And most of the retreats that I offer are, 2 to 3 days, a weekend or a couple days during the week. But this one with Rob was just a day. And what we created in that day together was absolutely transformational. And I say that with full sincerity because truly to have spent a day with no agenda, no structure, no specific intent in mind, and to come out of it with such clarity, such positivity, such power was such a win for that day spent together. So the piece I want to reflect on most in this creation vacation that we spent together in the couple Fridays ago was the fact that we both showed up in a mindset of growth and openness and possibility and vulnerability that set the tone for where the day would lead us. And not even knowing where the day would leave us, we knew whatever direction conversations may go, we were in. We were prepared to sit in a conversation and to stay in the conversation in a way that would create some, real transformation. And it did. And the day started as Rob and I sat down with our notebooks open at the table, probably 15 minutes into the day, where we ordered some conch fritters, as one does in the Keys. And a young gentleman showed up to drop the food off. And as he dropped the food off and was about to turn around and leave, he said, "So who are you guys? Why are you guys here writing and taking notes and clearly immersed in some really intense conversation?" And again, this is 15 minutes into the day. And Rob and I looked at each other before responding and just smiled and thought, what a great way to frame this day. So we sat and talked to this individual, London, for a long time, about for 20 or 30 minutes, about the power of reflection and doing a self audit and thinking about things related to our business and how we show up in our business and how it impacts our families and how it's in service of the life that we're trying to create. And we asked what was his interest. And he shared that he's doing self-development work and he reads a lot of books and likes to create the different theories and philosophies around certain things that he encounters in his life. And this kid was only 18 years old. And we said, wow, you're so far ahead of the game, being willing to create that time and space for yourself. And space for me has been really present. It's this idea that we are so busy in our days, so busy with our businesses, so busy with our lives and our families and whatever else we fill our agenda and our calendars with, that we rarely create the time and the space to put in this kind of work, to sit and journal, to sit and reflect, to sit and bask in the gratitude of all the things that we've done and all the things that we've built and we get to enjoy in our lives. And this day was exactly that. It was a day of space. So after we wrapped up our conversation with London, Rob and I ventured into different aspects of the business. Some of them were very tactical in terms of creating systems and processes to scale the business, to create IP and content in a certain way that resonates with our audience, but also doesn't require, an immense amount of time and energy invested daily. And as we would go through that, we would recognize the resistance or the hesitation that would come up in each of us. And we'd say, here's an opportunity for this, or here's an opportunity for that, or have you thought about this, or have you thought about that? And, one thing that Rob loves to say in our conversation is, there's a hole in your boat. And anytime that either one of us would say something that we did, a certain way, or we didn't do that wasn't in service of what we were trying to build, and we're quite clear on that, we would just call it out as, no, that's a hole in your boat. That's a missed opportunity. That's something that you can capitalize on. That's going to really shift the way that you operate in your business, the way that you show up for your clients, the way that you package your services, the way that you ask more powerfully and fearlessly. And I think the big takeaways for us in the day was really around the willingness to share very vulnerably at times what was holding us back, what we felt was potentially limiting us. We even went through an exercise where we were talking about an offering that I have to corporate clients or to larger companies or firms, where instead of coming in and coaching just the one leader, I'm coaching the leader and their team. And when we had sort of started with the initial price, I was thinking, all right, what's a price that is a no-brainer? What's a price that's safe? And then as we started to talk more about it, and Rob pushed back and I had to push back, and we'd start to, sort of peel back the layers, we realized that mathematically it didn't even make sense to offer such a low price. That actually the price that sounded scary to me at one point was much more of a fair price for the service and the value that I was offering, and actually still at the slightly lower end of what could be offered, but significantly higher than what I had originally offered because of just the place I was operating from. I was playing a little small, I was limiting myself. And as my eyes were open to that, I realized there's so much opportunity. And I think about the people who I work with, the clients I work with, the incredibly impressive professionals that I work with and that I interact with throughout my various networking opportunities. And I realized, wow, what missed opportunities are people not even seeing because they don't have the opportunity to sit in conversation with someone like this and have it reflected back to them. And is there a hole in your boat? Is there something that you're doing or not doing that's limiting you? Has you playing small? And I imagine that all of us, I talk about this all the time with clients. A lot of us have blind spots, but blind spots, if there's little or no awareness or no opportunity to have that reflected back to you, it's almost like ignorance is bliss. They're not even known unknowns. They're not even known blind spots. They are areas of your life or of your business or of your leadership that are completely foreign to you, completely unseen. And I think that's the piece where there is opportunity for us as leaders, for us as professionals, for us as business owners and members of our families to be able to then say, who am I not talking to who could really reflect back to me something that would be incredibly powerful for me to sit and process? And yes, maybe there's an opportunity for you to execute or take action on immediately, but even just the sort of value of being able to marinate in that and have that percolate in you. Because for me, it's been now a week and a half or so since Rob and I did that creation vacation. So much has emerged in the week and a half since that conversation, since that day of conversations. And I think that's the big takeaway for me. And that's what I wanted to share today was, where are you missing opportunities? Where are you undervaluing the people that you have around you to serve as a mirror to you and what you do? Because when we do these things in a vacuum, or even if we surround ourselves with a bunch of yes people, it becomes an echo chamber, right? It's just this relaying back of what we already know. The value is hearing what you may not want to hear, or hearing what you may not know, that then opens up your mind to a different perspective, to a new possibility, to new potential in you to expand who you are as an individual, as a leader, as a business owner, as a family member. And I think that's the real opportunity. So I encourage you, as you're thinking about what this creation vacation was, and if you want to hear more about it, obviously reach out to me anytime. I'm happy to talk to you about it. I think, though, that the opportunity is to find mini versions of your creation vacation. Can you take a vacation from your day? Can you take a vacation from your routine, even? And routines are fantastic, but too much of a routine becomes habitual. You become a little complacent because you've gotten so used to your routine. How can you take a break and actually sit and talk about what it is you do? And you may reinforce the idea that what you're doing is exactly what you want to do and it's exactly in service for what you want to create. Or you may find that as you're talking about this with somebody else, and that's the key, with somebody else, that the questions that they ask to get a bit more clarity for themselves gives you more clarity and helps you decide ultimately if you like what you're doing, if you love what you're doing, and if you want to keep doing it the same way, or if you want to change it up a little bit or adjust, and where you want to adjust. So that's my invitation to you, is to think about how you're operating every day, every week, every month, every year for that matter, and really be honest about when and where you're finding opportunities to take that creation vacation. And it doesn't have to be a full-on vacation somewhere remote. It can genuinely be a portion of your day, a moment in time in the day where you're able to just sort of clear your mind and be in conversation with somebody who challenges you to see things differently. Because I think that, from a growth mindset, is exactly what has us leveling up. And if you think about this sort of in the terms of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you get to that top of the pyramid, it's self-actualization. And that's that ongoing process. It's not this sort of one and done, once you get there, you're good. It's very much this idea of, how do we, once there, continue a practice of expansion and awareness and reflection and revising. And the best way that I have found to do that, because that was certainly the case a week and a half ago when I spent the entire day with my buddy, is to find somebody in your life, to find somebody in your business who can be that for you, to have a partner in strategy, in thought, in honesty, in vulnerability. That is really powerful. And I think most of the, if not all, of the most effective leaders that I know are people who genuinely invest their time, their energy, and their money in those relationships. So I hope you find time for a creation vacation in the coming days. We are coming off of a couple weeks of some really bad weather down here in Florida. So anyone listening, I hope if you're in the South or any of the places that have been affected by the recent weather, that you're doing well. And I will kick these episodes into high gear so we can get back on track with these. I've got some really exciting guests coming on soon. So stay tuned. Thanks for listening. Thanks for sharing, subscribing, reviewing, all of that. I love it. And I appreciate your engagement, and looking forward to doing many more of these in the weeks, months, and years to come. So if you love this episode, just let me know what came up for you. I'm curious to hear what came up for you. And if you enjoyed it, again, please like and subscribe. If you want to connect with me, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn at Hakeem A. Lakhdar or lakhdarcoaching.com. Thanks for tuning in. Keep being great, and we will see you next time.